State Treasurer Julie Ellsworth.
How
How are you?
exciting. Yes, I'm happy to be here.
Oh, good.
And it's a good day. And I know everybody's always excited to hear about the Idaho State Treasury. There's nothing more exciting to talk about
Okay,
accountants or money.
okay. But listen, I knew you were coming on. I'm like, well, look, like any reasonable person, I should probably find out what you do. And I got blown away because I didn't know that there was somebody who takes idle funds in the state of Idaho, then invests them, and then gives the money back. So, like, we essentially have pools of money, say for a bond or whatever it might be, money that's collected until it gets paid out. And you're like, hey, man, give me that. And you like
Okay.
take it and you're like multiply it. And then you're like, and here's more back. How much did you make off of the idle funds investments?
Last year it was about $566 million in interest earnings that we turned back to Idaho taxpayers. See,
And that's interest earnings. So
yes,
literally, like, we just took the tax money that was collected, we multiplied it 560 million times, and then we gave it back to the state.
that's it. Yeah. So my duty under the Constitution is I'm a constitutional officer, and I love our founding fathers of the state of Idaho because they realize they need an entity that takes the money. Because guess what? People like to steal money, and so in the Constitution, the money is handled by the Treasury. I can listen to ideas, but I can't be told by another entity how to do it. It is my charge that I answer directly to the Idaho voters. It's a statewide elected position, and yes, we manage about. I think right now the assets under management fluctuate, but it's about 12 billion right now. That I have an investment division in my office, and they manage it, they match it up. They're like CFOs. They match it to the needs of the state so that money will be available when the payment is due. But while it's not due, we'll maximize the earnings on the money, just like you would do in your own budget. You wouldn't just let money sit there. You want to earn interest so that you can have more money. Money very much elevates people and it elevates individuals, when they learn how to manage it.
Right. And obviously, you're one of the six people on the land board, right?
I am not on the
Oh,
land board.
okay. You're
Initially,
a constitutional officer, but you're not on
I'm not on
the
the
land
land
board.
board. Yeah,
I was going to say because that's the management of Idaho's funds and its land, all pooled, as you were saying, like money elevates people. Yeah, money. I mean, that's money that largely goes to our public education and things of that
exactly.
nature. Like, we need funds, and we need to be really, really smart with funds, not just for roads, but to improve the lives of everybody. And
Exactly. And so that would be an endowment type thing. I do have an endowment that I manage in
my
my
goodness.
office. The endowment is the Millennium Fund, and it was made. Actually, I served 12 years in the legislature. And when I was in the legislature, we created the Millennium Fund, which was the money off of the proceeds of the cigarette. Um,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Representative, former representative. She was also a PTA president. Come on,
I
they
don't
were.
know. You're
It's
saying it.
Julie
Oh,
Van Orden.
Julie
No.
Van Orden.
Yes, she was one of the big individuals that was pushing for the cigarettes get moved off of. So we have a cigarette, tax,
The
right?
proceeds.
Yeah, but we also have she was a big push to get cigarettes moved off of countertops and like essentially to help prevent
Yeah.
underage distribution of
Yes.
cigarettes.
So I was in the legislature at the time that those were
Yeah, that was a
the
big thing.
topics,
There was a
and
big time when we addressed that.
we did win a lawsuit, and the proceeds were put into the principal of an endowment, and then every year, then we manage the endowment, and then every year there's interest earnings for the legislature to decide how to spend. They have to affirmatively go in and decide how to spend those funds. They don't just go back to the general fund. They're to be used for drug cessation and smoking cessation purposes.
You guys also manage, speaking of funds, you guys also manage the Ideal Fund,
I
don't you?
do.
And that's the 521,
529.
529 savings account that parents like me can save up for
Absolutely.
their kids for education expenses. And then if they decide that they don't want to go to college, then it can roll over into like a different essentially retirement account for kids,
Exactly.
right?
And that's new since I was elected about 6 years ago, and I watched that as it evolved into, it just promotes savings with a tax benefit. And yes, I am the president, or no, the chairman of the committee that oversees the 529 college savings accounts. We have that housed in my office. I quite enjoy doing that, and it requires, anytime you manage money, you hire a professional that has eyes on it, and how people are investing. You want the feedback so that it just isn't handled in a very unprofessional way.
Sure.
That fund is doing well, and last year in the legislature, we passed the 529A accounts, which is the ABLE account. The ABLE account is for individuals with disabilities. So I am in the process of establishing an ABLE account in Idaho. It will allow people with disabilities to obtain a tax benefit if they save, and that benefit will not hurt their other funds that they're eligible for. It's very powerful. If you think about individuals that have young people, they know, well, these young people will grow up. What's going to happen when they're grown? And I need to have something for them when I'm not here. And those ABLE accounts do that.
So essentially, it's kind of like saying, hey, I have a child that has very low probability of being able to take advantage of,
Right.
college education or something like that. And although there's a 529 tax benefit savings account for college, let's make one for the alternative, which is, hey, this person is going to need resources. They're going to need funds.
Exactly.
And I can start saving for them in a manner that they qualify for, and then helps them. And I get the tax benefits, like if I was saying saving for college.
Or the tax benefit goes to the beneficiary as well, if you choose to do that. I think that as I say this over your podcast, that perhaps everybody knows somebody that can benefit from this. And it's interesting I'm currently working on the contracts with an entity that would allow us to join a consortium in the state. But that's what the legislature allowed me to do last year. So I look forward to getting those ABLE accounts in the hands of Idahoans, in the hands of parents, that have real life issues with people that have needs.
A quick question, and again, I try to not focus on anything other than Idaho, but the big beautiful bill, it was my understanding, expanded the 529 savings capacity. Is that true?
I believe it has. Part of the ABLE account was expanded so that the cutoff age used to be 26 if the injury or the need for an ABLE account occurred by the age of 26, then you were eligible. And now they've moved that to the age of 45. And that was in the big beautiful bill, I believe. Now that's significant because that will help veterans. That will help a lot of people that have been injured, as adults. Now they can take advantage of this ability to. It's a matter of dignity. When I think about people with disabilities, I just appreciate the time that they've taken to talk to me because, first of all, that's very personal information that you have to talk. But one lady said to me, imagine having benefits and your van that you use to transport yourself around needs a repair and it can't be fixed until your benefits okay it. So that means I go a year without transportation. Could anybody do that? Could you do that? Could you wait until this allows them the dignity to put money on the side so that they can pay for those things, which is beneficial to the state. We're not having to pick up those costs, but they can pay for them. They can pay for them in a living way.
And explain this to me. So, and again, please excuse my ignorance. When we're talking about something like this, and you're saying, look, it helps veterans. Say I'm like a 25-year-old and I get injured in, deployment, active duty deployment, and I get injured and I come back and I'm disabled. Then what's the benefit to the 529A for that person?
The 529A will allow the injured individual qualifies for certain resources through different programs. You can now have people save additional money, and it won't jeopardize your ability to obtain the resources that you previously were qualified for.
Okay, so say I have parents and they're like, okay, we would like to help you. We're going to put money into this 529A for you, Matt, because you're injured, and it's not going to disqualify you from engaging in other resources.
It has to be spent for the purposes that are outlined, for the medical purposes and things like that. But it's really a win for the state too, because people can supplement what needs to happen
I
and
got
provide dignity. So
That makes sense. That's great.
yeah, that was just last session, and literally I just finished a contract talk just a few days ago. So hopefully that's up and going before the session begins.
Awesome. There are a lot of things we could talk about, but
Yes.
one big one that we were chatting about before that's coming up is we have our 250th anniversary as a country coming up this next 4th of July, and we have all kinds of kickoffs and celebrations with that. We have one coming up in September on September 11th. Tell me about the Spuddy Buddies and
Okay.
the America
You're
250.
laughing at me.
I'm laughing with you. There's a difference.
Okay, so the camera is not focused on your eyes, but I can tell you, yes, you are laughing with me. Okay, why is the treasurer involved with America 250? I was expressly put in a piece of legislation to oversee the implementation of America 250. in
This was
Idaho.
legislation.
This was legislation.
Your name got put in.
Not my name, my
But-
title.
the treasurer's going to take over too.
Well, and other people
Oh
were
my
other
gosh.
titles were in the legislation too, but I was specifically put there. And money was transferred to my account to help implement this. And I thought, wow, is that how you get money from the legislature? You don't ask for it. And then, but we want the expressed goal of the legislators is that we want a celebration. This is a big deal. It's 250 years a commemoration of our birth. And so, thus begins my journey.
Listen, I saw, I think it was Spudgeman Franklin for the first time. Somebody sent me a picture of it, and then I got to meet him in person.
Where did you meet him?
I was interviewing Representative Cornelius, and it might have been John
Cheatham.
Spudgeman.
John Cheatham has him.
Okay, well, who did I meet?
You met
can't
Thomas
remember.
Jefferspud.
Okay.
Get it straight.
Oh my God. And you're essentially working with the Idaho Potato Commission because the Spuddy Buddies are their thing.
Their
And
mascot.
you're dressing them up into our founding fathers and other notable characters in American history and our
That is
revolution and independence. And then
giving
you're
them each a
taking them
personality.
and a personality and a hairline and a very, very swanky set of clothing and taking them across the state to help people understand what the roles and the key pieces of these individuals were, who they were as people,
correct.
all of that.
And they are considered to be America 250 in Idaho ambassadors. And so there's a Facebook page entitled that, America 250 in Idaho Ambassadors. And the purpose of them is the goal for the big celebration is to have a replica of the Declaration of Independence hung at the oculite of the Capitol. That's the very top where the stars are. And I know it can be hung there because I have been up there and I know that. Okay, so it'll be large. And then I wanted, well, how many Idahoans would have wanted to sign on to this? And so I thought, well, why don't they? And so these ambassadors carry a portion of that scroll to sign on. And then eventually we'll scan in all the names of people that additionally signed on to the Declaration, the Idaho Declaration of Independence. And we'll, on a given day in the future, we will unfurl that Idaho Declaration of Independence from the oculite. And I hope it hits the floor and goes up to the train station. But, I'll have to talk to the fire marshal a little more on all this. But so the ambassadors are very busy and they go to different events upon request by typically lawmakers. And to that point, I believe Representative Cheatham has kidnapped Spudgeman Franklin, but we're not going to name names. He would laugh if he heard this said. But they do go to different events and they're very popular because they're just really cute.
There were and the detail, and you personally are making
Yeah.
all of this clothing. Like the detail you're going into with these things is wild.
I know their hairlines, like I said. I know their personalities too. The Potato Commission starts with the Spuddy Buddy. And the reason I know how to sew, did I tell you this, Matt? Oh, the reason I know how to sew is when I was young, I was that sibling that couldn't get along with anybody. You know that one. You were probably that one too, right, Matt? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm
I'm
very
just
likable. My siblings don't think so, but I am very likable.
I was likable, and I was correct. but anyway, my mother would put me down in the basement.
This is not fair because my siblings are all
You
jerks.
interrupted me.
Like I'm just,
Okay.
I know. I'm just saying. You called out my likability. I have people skills.
You called out your likability.
I don't believe I
Okay,
did.
so I was sent to the basement. No, I wasn't sent. I was encouraged to go to the basement
Oh,
where the sewing machine was, and my mother gave me a white spool of thread and a black spool of thread and said, please learn to sew. I mean, I'm sure this was her way of time out for that. But it really is a tribute to my mom because she needed a way. I was second grade. She needed a way to channel this Julie, and she found it. And I taught myself to sew. I learned very well. And at one point in my life, I wanted to work for the Muppets because then you could create a sarcastic personality and then also do an image with the creation of the clothing. And I just thought that would be very nice. And then I did other things in life. And, but so working, when I was asked by, sorry.
can I tell you something real
No.
fast?
Yes.
Please? In 22, I had a buddy who's a dentist, and he was like, hey, could you help me make some social media content? I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. We ended up using, I can't remember exactly the company. It's like Ben and it doesn't matter. But the point is, they're these Muppet, like hand
Oh,
puppets.
yeah.
And I ended up doing, and I had a doctor one. And I ended up doing Dr. Nico, because my buddy's name is Nico, right? And I did all these cartoons essentially with Dr. Nico, the puppet, and then me as the patient. And he had like all these ridiculous
So
dentist
you
jokes.
get where my mind is. So I see this potato, and then why did I come up with the potato? Because I'm on that committee put in the legislation by the legislators to implement America 250, oversee the implementation. And we were unveiling the Paul Revere Day on April 18th, and we had an event on the steps of the Capitol. And in preparation for that event, I was in brainstorming sessions, and I said, well, who's going to be Paul Revere and ride a horse around the Capitol? Because of course you need a Paul Revere with a horse around the Capitol. And I could tell that landed very poorly, and that there was not going to be a Paul Revere on a horse riding around the Capitol. And I thought, there will be a Paul Revere. So I took my Spuddy Buddy, who is an official mascot again for the Idaho Potato Commission, but this Spuddy Buddy takes children throughout the Capitol and on tour of the different constitutional offices.
The Paul Revere Spuddy Buddy.
No, the regular Spuddy Buddy.
Oh,
So
gotcha.
this is the pre-Paul Revere.
Gotcha.
Okay. So I took my regular Spuddy Buddy home that weekend and thought, there will be a Paul Revere. And I turned him into Spuddy Buddy. I turned him into Spud Revere, and he's really cute. He's on a horse and everything. But so I was also on the program. And so I smuggled him in under a blanket. It looked like a dead body. And and on my portion of the program, I talked to the people, and I unveiled Spud Revere. And I said, this is my contribution to Paul Revere Day. What is yours? And people sent back things like Lego Paul Revere, and just a whole bunch of things. But this is what I noticed, that after the event, people lined up to have their picture taken with Spud Revere. And I thought, my dog was even there dressed up as Paul Revere, but it was Spud Revere and you knew that you connected with something. So then I went to the Potato Commission and asked them if I could use their mascot, because I had already done it. and would it be okay if we could make these revolutionary characters? And they're very supportive. And I quite thank them, because, oh my goodness, the Spud Revere, I've always thought he was very cute. And then that began my journey, because truthfully, I didn't think I would be making potatoes at this time in my life this year. Last year, I had no recollection, but it unlocks something very deep in my core, because it goes back to that second grader having to sit down with a black and white spool of thread. And I quite like it, and I've learned their personalities, and I feel strongly that people in Idaho need to own this celebration. And as I make these potatoes, they tend to respond to them. There will be additional potatoes made up to 16, and the 16th potato will be one that the Idahoans vote on which one they want me to make. You're eyeing me like, is there something wrong with it?
No, I'm not. When you talk about learning their personalities, there are contributions and aspects of these people that are unique and very difficult to understand unless you dive really deeply into them. For instance, Paul Revere, one thing I learned years back is that he was not the only person
Absolutely
trying to warn people about the British coming.
He was
right?
essentially a text messenger, and there were other texts
Sure.
They needed to get the message out. Yeah.
But one reason Paul Revere was so successful and is so notable is because when he started talking to people, he was already deeply connected to his surrounding communities. He was on different
Right.
committees. He was engaged in community events and happenings. So when he showed up, he had the exact same information that other people had, but it was his previous integrity and his notoriety in his everyday life that made him a valuable messenger.
He was, it's humbling after you get to know these people because I'll tell you the names of the people that I've done. And then initially we were thinking, okay, I have George Washington, and then I will do a Trader Tater, which will be Benedict Arnold. And that was so funny. And at the very beginning, I thought, yeah, I'm going to make Trader Tater. But after I've made these individuals and gotten to know the personalities like I've gotten to know them, I'm kind of ticked at Benedict Arnold. I'm going to have trouble making him. And I was talking to you earlier, and I think he's not going to get boots. He's just going to have socks,
What did you learn about his character? What was it?
He was very trusted. He was very much could have been, had the prestige of George Washington in terms of his leadership ability. He was at the same level, and he just got suckered in. I mean, it's all people writing and, what is right and what is wrong. But I've learned that what these other individuals have done, the sacrifices they made in their lives. And I just think, no traitor's going to hurt my Spuddy buddies. It's pretty powerful.
Did you learn anything about George Washington?
Oh, George Washington. I quite love George Washington. I think that, first of all, I think George Washington, the fact that he was there, that personality was there at that time was needed and nobody else could have done it. I think that he knew how to hold his tongue. He knew how to be patient as he watches legislative committees, which I've done a lot of. Just everything people say about him and his grandeur. But I also learned that he likes to dance. He likes to, that he was fun, that he had a quick wit and he liked to dance. I had some interns in my office. Let's see. He was a successful farmer, entrepreneur, and surveyor. When he was 16, he was proficient at surveying. That's why my little potato has a surveyor's glass on it. But, pretty amazing man. Of his time, he needed to be there. And to that point, Ben Franklin.
I was going to say somebody who likes to have fun.
I know. Okay, so
That's all I heard about as a teenager. They're like, he was quite risque with the French.
yours, and that's all you remember. Huh.
What do you want me to say, man?
What did you remember about John Adams?
Not a lot.
Okay, so this is the
Wealth
point.
of Nations. I don't know.
Okay, so this is the thing about this. I took the presidential website that
Wait, he was the invisible hand, right?
I think so.
Yes.
But I took the president's website, the U.S. president's website, and there are 7 characters that they felt were the principal characters of the revolution, the writers and stuff. And I learned that John Adams, I used to just really make fun of him because I kind of thought that, I'd be afraid of him because he's very serious and he had a really bad hairline. And I would mock, in my office, like, I'm not making John Tater. I've got Abby Tott here already, and I love Abigail Adams. And,
Well, she apparently loved him too.
Oh, she did. They were inseparable.
She must have known something.
But after learning more about their lives, I think he's one of my favorite. Because what happened was that in the Continental Congress, they put John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and Benjamin Franklin together as a subcommittee, essentially. We need to get a declaration written, get it done. And those 3, Jefferson had the prose, but it took the subcommittee, and it's just beautiful. I quite enjoy that, and I want to teach children that through my little John Tater and Abby Todd Adams and Spudgeman Franklin. Spudgeman was very interesting. The way I describe them is I think John, if I wanted to have a creative idea, perhaps, that had never been done before, John Adams would say, no, you can't do that. Thomas Jefferson said, I'll do everything to help you, but I'll keep my fingerprints off of it. And Benjamin Franklin would be, yeah, let's do it. Joining in.
Oh yeah, he was down to party.
Yeah, he would have been in it. And I think interesting combination to develop our declaration.
Yeah. And the interesting aspect of Jefferson's contribution. I mean, many aspects of it, but there was the issue that some people accused him of plagiarizing himself, which is hilarious because he had written the Virginia Constitution and some other things. And there was this big question of like, okay, was this new writing or was this cut and paste? Or like, had he already come up with these ideas that found somewhat of representation in other pieces of literature that he penned, right? And it ultimately came down to it's like, how do you accuse somebody of plagiarizing themselves? And like, even if he had, does that lessen the impact or value of it?
Yeah. Well, I look at the document and I've watched documentaries now on how it was done, and I think they were the right words at the right time
Right.
that had the power that needed to be there. When I think about Thomas Jefferson, my previous opinion was he always fought against George Washington. I kind of think both sides needed to be there, but he was also, this is an interesting fact. Okay, he became the third president of the United States, but he also, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams died on the same day on July 4th, 1826, 50 years apart from the Declaration. And I thought that was powerful. But Thomas Jefferson was also arrested with James Madison because they were riding in a carriage on Sunday. And that was against the law. Those are just fine little details that I love to learn about these individuals. Thomas
Wait, you
Jefferson.
couldn't ride in a carriage?
I can't go into it. I just
Or you
it's
can't
just
ride,
a-
like, was it that he was with another dude or like what?
No, it was illegal to ride in a carriage on the Sabbath.
Oh my gosh, okay.
I don't have the documents that show
Okay.
the arrest warrant, but I just
I
want you
got
to know
you.
that it connects you with them. They're real people, and they rose to the occasion, and it's so powerful. I'm currently making what's her name? The gal that did the laundry. So Anna Strong, she'll be a tot because all the girl potatoes are tots because I'm the creator tater and they are the tots and it's the band. But anyway, so Anna Tot Strong, she was a spy in the Culper Ring. Oh my gosh, it's so powerful. The Culper Ring spies were established by George Washington, and it's a whole known story. But she was the one that hung her laundry out in a manner that signaled to the Patriots where the British were. She was never caught. She was a spy during the whole time, and her laundry line was just visible to people in the area, and then they could communicate on where the British were. I think, boy, Anna, you are somebody I want to meet. You're a mom with little kids, and she actually was a mother of 10, but at the time she had 9 when she was a spy. Okay, I want to meet this lady. Anyway, it changed my life making these potatoes.
When you talk about somebody like that, like I have anxiety just in life. More specifically looking at, like my pathetic existence. And like my grandfather came over from Mexico and moved to Arizona when he was like a kid, right? And had nothing and then got signed up for the army because they gave him a hot dog and like $5. And then the next thing you know, he's in World War II. He's just a kid. And my dad was born one of 6, kids in a very poor Hispanic family, and went off to Vietnam. I was a helicopter pilot at 18, and then I'm around.
Yeah.
It's like I go to college, like I'm on the rowing to like I haven't had the trials and tribulations that some in my family have, and I wonder. It's like when you're going through all of this, do you reflect on our contemporary government and our contemporary country and the state of it and say like, where are these figures, or do these figures exist? They're just not. All of the other nonsense in the country just sucks the air out of the oxygen, and these people do exist. We just don't see them in the same way, but they're still toiling, like by candlelight, trying to right the wrongs of our country.
I think the people do exist. I think in every era there's some light for needs of change, and I think the people do exist. I want to read you what John Adams said. His famous quote of "sink or swim" was one, but his other quote was, "I must study politics and war, that my sons may have liberty to study mathematics and philosophy." So don't feel bad that one generation they were called upon to do certain things. Do what you called upon to do during your generation. I look at navigating the internet and all the different things that we're doing, in the world now. It's so different, even from my childhood, where, you just go out and ride a bike and fall
Sure.
off dirt mountain,
Whatever. Yeah, right.
and you didn't even get to text anybody about it because, you didn't. And besides that, probably nobody cared. You came
Right.
home with, this is maybe a true story, you come home with mud in your mouth. Where have you been? I don't know, dirt mountain, But, for my era, I see the
Maybe a
change.
true story, not confirmed. Maybe a true story.
Maybe a true story.
Maybe.
And perhaps my mother walked around the block with a yardstick trying to get after me for that. I do have that yardstick. She was such a wonderful woman. And she really is. She is. I very much admire the ability of parents to parent in this society now. I mean, you are met with a lot of different things that are current society. This is what they were met with. The question that I have is that if I were Abigail Adams, and if I am Abigail Adams now, and something came up that needed to be addressed, would I? And I think I would hope I would, because she was, these individuals were just living life, and it was thrust upon them, as Shakespeare would say. The Sons of Liberty and the Tea Party and all that kind of stuff, Paul Revere was the son of liberty. There was a connection with these people, that they were connected to that rebellion.
How do we figure out which rebellion to be part of?
I
Right.
don't know.
Like, how do we determine in contemporary America? There is no clear, like, the British was the enemy. Okay, great. Like, we got that, no problem. Now what? Right? It's because largely there are these social questions that it's kind of like, okay, how do I get on board with this thing? Or like, how do I understand this differently? Or like, this really doesn't make sense and these people are really worked up. Like, how do we engage in this question of sacrificing for our country and committing the best of ourselves to something bigger than us in the right direction?
You have to have core principles. I'm pretty sure. I think, you should read the founding doctrine. What is it? Read the Federalist Papers too. But the core principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, you don't have to go beyond that. Is this creating life? You want to have a quality of life that brings joy to people. Liberty, you don't want to be restrained by arbitrary things. If things are infringing on that, then you step up. This is a liberty question. And the pursuit of happiness, I mean, we're not designed to sit in a prison cell and be unhappy. We really are designed. Humanity is fascinating in and of itself because every generation benefits from the previous generation. Whereas animals don't necessarily do that. They just have these instincts. But we benefit from the creation of the wheel, and look at where it's taken us. We benefit from the creation of medicine, and look at where it's taken us. It's just a cumulative thing that makes you a human. You benefit from all of humanity. And I think that elevates us to the time period in our lives right now. And there will be challenges that John Adams would have never imagined. And you're kind of a pioneer handling that. Personally, I think all of the internet and all of the ability to access information is just delightful for me. In a way that, I wouldn't have imagined, but then there's a negative to it as well. And, so we're the people that have to find out where the negative is and protect society, because there is a negative to all this information and all this stuff on the internet. And, John Adams didn't need to figure that out.
No, he didn't have to stop himself from eating a bag of Cheetos at 10 o'clock at night. Like, he didn't have death scrolling that he had to contend with as he was trying to get his work done,
Didn't.
right?
But he had issues of his time that he needed to find the parameter of reason, and we do too. And I do think that the availability of information so quickly, which I absolutely love, you really don't need to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and search a question. Like, did you do that 30 years ago? No. Like, why can't that wait until you have times where you're researching? But this is what information does to me. It's constantly available, so I constantly want to drink. And, we need to find good parameters. We need to find ways to keep us human. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I think that having a core idea of like why you're acting the way you're acting, that because there's so many distractions with that in general.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, do you need to be on the phone? Like I have to spend a portion of my day on social media because that's where I post a lot of
Exactly.
content. It's like, and if I catch myself doing something needless, it's like, no, 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 you're on this for a reason. And it's not entertainment. And if you find yourself doing it for entertainment, that's fine. Like you can entertain yourself, but is now the time to be entertained? Like you're trying to
Exactly.
work right now, right? So it definitely creates this positive feedback loop for people that can
Yeah.
absolutely control themselves, and like the world's most incredible negative feedback loop for people that can't. And
Yeah.
that's I mean, it's kind of like anything. It's like, you know, gin and tonics. Like people can
Yeah.
enjoy gin and tonics, you just don't want to drink them all the time.
It is moderation, but it is interesting because imagine taking, oh, let's see, taking, well, I don't know, Benjamin Franklin would have loved being thrown into to the ship. But imagine taking like a Paul Revere or let's see, Betsy Ross. You know, she's just living her best life, doing her thing. She's asked to. She was actually somebody who was an upholsterer and would make flags. You know, that was their regular business. And she's actually um, fascinating person, but she was just called upon to make a flag. You know, imagine taking her right now, throwing her in 2025 and saying, and by the way, will you deal with all of this Facebook page that's documenting this?
By the way,
You know, it's like, you know, they were
oh
made,
my
we
gosh.
are made for our time too. And I think that, you know, I do appreciate history because it makes you really feel responsible for leaving something for the future. You know, even if it's just, I learned how to navigate this information world. And, you know, I do get up at 2 o'clock and think, oh, what about this question? And then I start researching it. You know, I mean, why are you doing that? You know, did you do that when you had books? Maybe, but I waited till 5.
Right.
You know, that kind of stuff.
I gotta say, I'm really bummed about this.
Yeah.
I knew America 250 was coming up and I did see the Facebook page, but I was like, I don't really know what's going on. And then somebody texted me about what you were doing, and I was like, oh, hell yeah. So, you know, you and I have kind of shared some ideas, and
Yes.
I won't spoil them on air now, but I'm really excited about this. And I think especially sharing it with young people and orienting our country back towards, hey, it's great to be happy. Like it's great to be excited about the country, about, you know, Fourth of July, a lot of things like that.
Life, liberty, and the
Yeah,
pursuit of happiness. You're not
those,
intended to be miserable.
man, the pursuit of happiness is one thing that I, in recent years, have come to appreciate so much. I mean, obviously, you have that beautiful Will Smith film from
Hmm.
years ago, but in my own life, it's like, I don't know why, but it took me so long to realize it's like, no, it's the journey.
It
Like it's
is
the
the journey.
pursuit. It's the engagement and the direction of doing something that you think will make you happy. It's never like the happy. It's not.
But more to point with being a government official, why would it be their business to tell me what I'm going to be happy about? You know, that's the thing. These guys were determining at the time. The government is not the, you know, divine person that gets to tell me what makes me happy. That's pretty powerful. Because if it were, maybe they would have mislabeled Betsy Ross and didn't know that she liked to sew. You know, I mean, it's none of government's business. You get to pursue it. That was what these guys were talking about.
Man, these are wild times.
I know.
So tell me about the event on 9/11.
On it, 9/11 is actually Patriots Day, and that we have events to honor it as we always do. But we will have the unveiling of this celebration for America 250 in Idaho kickoff. So we want it to just heighten the awareness that we do have something going on. The Spuddy Buddies will all be there. You can have your picture taken with them. They have different things that they do. Like, for example, Spud Revere has a fitness club and stuff like that. But they'll have those things going on. We'll have elected officials, the governor there, just talking about we need to celebrate America's 250th birthday. We're doing this now. Please join us. We'll have the Patriot flags, food trucks, you know, just everything you need. It will be from 11:30. Let's see. No, the program is at 11 o'clock. That's when we talk. And from 11 to 11:30. But then the event to sign the scroll, the replica of the Declaration of Independence, that will be going on until 2 p.m. So people can stop by and sign. Because again, the treasurer wants it to touch the floor technically, but if it went up to the train depot, wouldn't that be cool? I did get requests from schools. Can we have school children? Well, of course, if they understand what they're signing, so I want it's the Declaration of Independence that we're collecting the signatures on is the equivalent of purchasing a brick, for an event.
Yeah, right.
You become part of history.
Minus the purchase. You don't have to pay
Yeah,
for the signature.
minus the, yeah. Maybe we should charge for, no, just kidding.
It's a stupid question. I realize you keep saying the train depot. Where's the train depot?
On Capitol Boulevard, it's up at the top of the boulevard.
I've never been.
I'm sorry.
I know.
So
I'm a terrible person. I'm a terrible Idahoan.
Oh, well, as the city of Boise is laid out, you have the train depot up on the hill, you have the Capitol at the bottom, and then there's a road, Capitol Boulevard, that,
Yeah.
and a lot of cities are set out that way, but, it's quite a long walk.
God bless him. I'll have to go check it out. Thank you for coming in today.
You're welcome.
This has been a gas. I have, again, we have a lot of work to do because I have a dump truck of ideas and I think they're going to be lit. 9/11 at the Capitol, big Patriots Day celebration. The Spuddy Buddies will be there. You can go meet Spudgeman Franklin if the good representative brings Spudgeman back.
Yes.
Yeah, we're just going to rock and roll. Cool things to come.
Yes, I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.